This week, we're recapping the PlayStation State of Play and the Pokemon Presents. This is the Good Game, Bad Game podcast.
This is a song I wrote about the Good Game, Bad Game podcast. Good Game, Bad Game podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Good Game, Bad Game podcast. I'm your host, Spencer, and with me is a man who's not just a plus, but a plus plus, if you catch my drift. It's my co-host, Mike. Mike, how are you? And that's plus the symbol and then plus written out. Not to confuse you.
Thank you for calling that out, but not liking my tweet. I really appreciate that.
I definitely liked that tweet, did I not?
Oh, I don't think so.
My man coming after me over fucking Twitter likes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
What else is there?
Yeah, we'll talk about plus plus in a bit.
Yes, because that was we will. I'll save it. Ask me about the games I played this week.
Let's hear it. What games did you play this week?
I actually kept my word and played a game that I said I would in Rise: Son of Rome.
Let's go.
Yeah. You ever played a game that's 10 years old?
Yeah. Do you remember?
But then you also have to consider the fact that it's an Xbox One game.
Yeah. Remember when I played Bound by Flame or whatever, like a month or two ago? I think I know the exact feeling you're having. Go on.
Oh, it's just like, it's so funny because I remember when last gen came out and I saw this game and I was intrigued by it just because it was a new IP. It was kind of like at the start of like Xbox. It was the start of like a really weird time in Xbox, so I was definitely paying attention to it. And I remember like seeing it and being like, wow, that game looks really good. And yeah, I booted it up and I think it used CryEngine or something like that.
Okay.
And it said like copyright 2013. I was like, fuck. That's 10 years ago.
Don't love that feeling, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, actually, my first thought was, wow, that's like 5 years ago because I'm stuck in 2018 for some reason. And then no, I was like, wow, no, 2018 was 5 years ago. And that would make this 10 years.
Unreal.
It graphically horrendous.
Yeah. Yep.
But the flow of it and like the frame rate, like you could it might be upscaled. So I'm playing it on an Xbox One X. I'm not playing it on the Series X because that is still not set up from my living room being torn apart.
Uh-huh.
And so it could be upscaled a little bit, but the frame rate really good. And like everything is pretty smooth. I think there's a little bit of intentional like motion blur that's a bit much. But like the gameplay of it feels great. I'm actually really enjoying it. I haven't played a ton of it. I think it's a relatively short game, and I think I'm like 40% of the way through it. But yeah, really enjoying that.
Nice.
Nothing looks like actual Rome.
When you say the graphics are horrendous, do you mean that like you're playing a game that's 10 years old and so that's why? Or like
Yeah,
or
that's
is the
exactly why.
Okay, so
No,
yeah.
10 years ago, this would have been a masterpiece.
Right. Yeah. It's so funny. Like you don't realize how spoiled you are until you play a game. And like that's like the perfect example. A game that was literally on the last console. Because obviously you go back and play something on like the 64 and you're like, ha ha ha. But you're also like, but this came out 100 years ago.
Right.
And
right.
then you play a game that's only 10 years old, is literally on the last piece of hardware that was out. And you're like, holy shit. Like you don't realize how spoiled we are because the graphics just gradually improved as you like made it through the life cycle. So like the final jump from PS4 to PS5 and from Series X to, I don't know, 1X or just one, I guess, to the Series X if we're talking like just base models.
Hmm.
Like it may not seem like much, but comparing the start of like what was coming out to like what is coming out at the start of PS5 and Series X is like kind of incredible. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, and it was kind of making me reflect on like current gen and the stuff that has come out in the past 3 years, um, compared to like what the final product will be. Because like this game is not reflective of that entire generation. Like
Hmm.
I could probably go back. So the last game I played on last gen, or the last game I bought for last gen, was probably Red Dead Redemption 2.
Okay.
I
Yep.
could probably go back and play that, and it would look great. Still on Xbox One.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, playing that. I'm enjoying it. I'm playing it on easy.
That away. It's the way to do it.
I did consider uh, bumping it up to medium because it is easy. It is really easy. Um, but I'm enjoying it. It's like I think it's I was going to do that, and one Justine was in the room, and she's like, if you do that, you're not going to get through your backlog. So I appreciated that motivation.
Right.
And plus, I'm working on this really old backlog while my Series X isn't set up. So I like have a huge list of games to get through, and she's like, "You only have a limited time to do that. Just play everything on easy."
That away. Justine, if you're listening to this, gold star.
She should be.
You get the GGBG Gold Star of the Week, which is a new thing and probably the only time I'll ever give it out.
So also an exclusive then.
Yeah, there you go. I just saw it's so funny that you bring up like playing on a difficulty because I just saw I think somebody on Kotaku was talking about playing a game on easy that is like typically a game. I don't remember what the game was. It really doesn't matter. It might have been Atomic Heart because that's new. And they were saying
Hmm.
like, oh, if you play the game on easy, it's actually like 2 times the fun. And like somebody was like, it's crazy that you'll jump through hoops to just say like you have like a skill issue and like come up with excuses as to like why you need to play a game on easy. And I think that's bullshit because like, okay, sure, like, do you really need to like justify why you play on easy? No, absolutely not. But I will raise you once again that playing Horizon and Jedi Fallen Order on easy was like the most fun I had in the games because you're literally just like a badass in the world where through the story you are effectively a badass. And so I don't know.
That's exactly how Rise Son of Rome is too. And I was gonna say
Right.
that
Yeah.
when I was playing on easy, like everything, it's so entertaining because it is just like because there is combat, like there's countering, and it's like big, like one man versus a dozen, like in combat. So you're
Okay.
fighting multiple people at one time, and just the way you can string together, like parrying and attacking and
Hell yeah.
dodging, like it's really cool. And obviously, I feel like the higher you bump up the difficulty level, the less you get that, unless you're like really good, which is great. But some of
Right. Like
us are grown ass adults trying to pay a mortgage and don't have time to play video games all the time.
the window in which like the timing of counters and like attacks and stuff like that shrinks the higher the level goes up typically. So um whereas like on the easiest difficulty it's going to be much more forgiving. Yeah, I don't whatever. I mean, I get it. Like I said, nobody needs to really justify it. You can just say like you play a game on easy, but there are times where I legitimately do think that like it is more fun. Um, but I'm happy you made that decision, especially like to have the awareness of the fact that you have a giant backlog staring you down. That's good. Good on you.
Yeah, amen.
Amen. Anything else? What else have you been playing? Madden? That came to Game
Yeah,
Pass.
there it is. But I've been playing that on Xbox One X as well,
Oh,
and what was that?
I was just gonna say okay. Does that make it
Re
better?
It does in this sense.
Oh, okay.
It takes so long to load.
Oh, nice. So you're getting fed up with it quicker.
Exactly. I played
Yes.
one game and it's been like an hour and I'm like, "Okay, I'm not going to play more." So, yes, it takes me an hour to play one game where it did take 20 minutes on the Series X, but I'm also not playing an entire season in a night anymore.
That's yeah. All right. I hear you. That is better. Okay.
It plays exactly the same. Like, once you get into a game on the One X, like, compared to the Series X, you know, you basically can't tell the difference. It is
Sure.
really just the loading times.
Which is awesome. Like that's another thing that you like again don't realize just how spoiled you are because like we jumped into this new generation and it had these like instantaneous load times that like we just forgot that if you opened a door in Skyrim, it meant that you could probably like drive to the supermarket and get back before you actually loaded in.
Right. It's so funny because now I'm sitting in these loading screens and I'm just like, "What did I used to do?"
That's something that I actually really want to like try. I think I have, if I remember correctly, I do have Skyrim on PS3. I have it packed away because I'm getting ready to move. I'm getting ready to pull a GGBG mic. Um, but I also think the PS5 version of it is on the PlayStation Plus catalog, and so I really want to run like next to each other, like the loading screen of the
Mhm.
PS5 version that has been remastered and remastered again, effectively, um, versus the OG PS3 version. And just because I shit you not, Shelby and I tried to start playing that like way back, before the PS4 version of Skyrim was out, and I one night I legitimately fell asleep during one of the loading screens because I was just tired and like it just took so long that I was out. So,
That's so funny.
and when I woke up, it was still loading. That part was a lie, but everything else was true. And yeah. So then we gave up on it because I was just like, we're never gonna be able to play this because I'm just gonna keep falling asleep. But then the PS4 version came out and instantly fell in love. What a great game. Um. Okay. Sorry. So Rise Son of Rome. Is that what it's called?
Yep.
And Madden. Anything else?
No?
Okay, well, I mean, I guess you at least tried by playing the Rome game. So,
Yeah, it's been a week for me.
I gotta be honest, I didn't really play much this week. I feel like, um, came back, was doing some cleanup in Horizon, because again, I'm streaming that, um, leading up to the DLC coming out, and also so I can get the platinum on the PS4 version of it. So I was doing a little cleanup in that. Um, Streamed some Hades yesterday. I escaped for the ninth time. I believe I need to escape one more time. And I'll have finished the like actual story aspect of Hades. And then from there, it's just like your typical roguelite slash roguelike where you just keep doing runs and keep unlocking stuff. But like the story aspect of it will be complete. I think it's 10 runs. I think I saw that somewhere. So crushing it there. Just absolutely smashing it in Hades. Love that game still. It's so good. Uh and then the other game I've been playing, it's another month. More games are leaving PlayStation Plus. Uh there's this game called Dungeons 2. I had never heard of it. And it's basically like a city management type game in a way. That's like the best way I can describe it, where you have like uh basically you're an evil like demon. You possess a dungeon and like you hire various types of workers to work within your dungeon, and then you go out and actually attack like the quote unquote good guys. And so it's just like strategy and like shit like that. I'm loving it. It's so much fun. It's the perfect like scratch the like that part of my brain sort of game. Um so I'm playing that, and I think I'm like pretty much done with it. So I'll probably be moving on to something else here shortly. I think there's one other game or two other games that are going to be leaving that I looked at and was like, yeah, all right, I'll play this. I'll try it. Try and get the platinum. So, um, yeah, that's it though. Didn't really play a ton.
It's still pretty good though. It's cool that you found a game that just out of left field or
I'm
right
telling
field,
you,
whichever field it comes out of.
it's the best. I love doing this. Like, hey, it's leaving soon. I have roughly 30 days to play through this game. Can I get through it? And I've had a couple where I've like downloaded them, started playing them, and I was like, okay, either A, this is dog shit, or B, this is just very much not my type of game.
Mm.
But more often than not, I'm finding games that's like I would have never played this game, never heard of it, never like known about it. I mean, this is the second game in a series I had never heard of, and then I found out when like searching for it on the store that there's actually a third one as well. I was just like completely under the radar for me. I think it's technically like a PC game, and then I think the second one was the first one to like port over to actual consoles. But
Gotcha.
yeah, it's enjoyable. So keeping that up for now. At some point, that's going to fall off, probably towards the end of March, unless it's like really big games that I've like wanted to play, and then I see they're leaving. Because end of March, MLB The Show comes out, so it's
Rip.
questionable if I'm going to pull myself away from that to play a game called Dungeons 2 that I've never heard of. So, but we'll see. I do plan to try and do it for as long as possible because it's been great finding like again games that I would have never played. But enough about that. Let's talk about all the games that we want to play because we were treated, of course, the day that the last episode came out, and then in between episodes to two uh, presents style. Sony calls it a state of play because I think Sony do they have a is it a presents PlayStation presents? Is that like a separate thing? I feel like they have something that's called the presents, but
Could
I
be.
can't remember. I think they're supposed to have one coming up because people were not happy about this state of play, and then Pokemon for Pokemon Day every year does a Pokemon presents. So we got treated to that, which is, I mean, these types of events are always fun because you just get to see some new shit, or updates to stuff that you already knew about. And there's always this like, there's this mystery in the air, even if they set your expectations perfectly, which I thought Sony actually did for the state of play, despite it being kind of whatever. There's still a mystery of like what could be shown. And so I guess what do you want to start with? Should we just start with Sony, I guess? That's what we're kind of talking about. So the state of play was I believe about 45 minutes, maybe on the dot. And so again, to kind of set the expectations up front, they from the jump when they announced the state of play, they said that there was going to be 15 minutes for an extended look at Suicide Squad. So right off the bat, a third of it is going to one game to see like what's coming for that. And they also announced that they were going to be talking about 5 VR titles. And then they said updates from like third-party studios. So you can kind of start to like paint a picture of like what to expect. So again, I feel like that was pretty good. They still leave it up to interpretation in terms of like what else you could see, but like anybody who's like they're going to show the next God of War, they're going to show Spider-Man 2, you're probably like really really taking a shot in the dark there. Like the odds of that in Vegas, I don't know how odds work, but you'd make a lot of money if it ended up happening. But yeah, so there were definitely things I was interested by in this in the state of play. But again, like overall, it was just it was fine. So they showed off a couple of VR titles. I want to say that's how they kicked it off. One of which was Green Hell is getting a VR I guess, update or like release. Um,
Yeah, I saw
I
that.
I played Green Hell. I want to say like a year and a half
Mm.
ago at this point, and it's a really really fun game. I really enjoyed it. Um, and I actually think that VR might make this game a bit more bearable. Which I feel like is kind of like a weird thing to say. Maybe not, but it just fucking blows using a controller. And so I feel like the ability to actually like look like so like one of the aspects of the game is that you have to like look at your arms and legs and then pull leeches off of them
Mm.
and like or like cover up an abrasion or uh swat at ants, shit like that, right? You have to constantly be checking yourself. And on a controller, it is just a pain in the ass. But I feel like in VR, because you can like tilt your head and stuff, it should hopefully be easier.
Right, at least more natural.
Right. Natural. Yeah. I guess natural would be the better word for it. But yeah, so I'm really curious about that. I actually think that'll translate pretty well. I say that because I saw somebody make the like connection that I was like, um, would it be fun to like make reloading a gun as annoying as possible? Like it's like VR company. Would it be fun to make reloading a gun as annoying as possible? User, no. And then VR company, too bad. um, and I was like, yeah, at times I feel like there are certain things where it's just like, oh my God. But this was something where I was like, I think this will do. So um they showed off a couple of other games. Before Your Eyes was an interesting one. Every time you blink, you jump forward in time, like during the narrative. So I thought that was really, really fascinating. I'm super interested by that and to like see more there. Um, but yeah, uh, that was those were like the two that I was like most interested in from the VR part.
I was frankly just happy that they're, putting emphasis into just showing more VR stuff and trying to get excitement up for it. Um, Still hold my opinion on PSVR too, but I don't want to see it fail.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that throughout the next year or two, like every event has a little bit of something in VR.
Yeah, I really hope so too. I think so. I think we touched on it at the end of last episode, but we didn't really go into it. But Sony expanded the launch window titles up to 40 total for PSVR 2, and now you announced 5 more new games that people can kind of look forward to coming out. I agree with you. They do really need to make sure they just keep hitting on that. Um, because I think one of my like biggest reservations about getting PSVR 2 is the fact that like I can I can rationalize like getting a PS5 because there's so many games on there that I want to play. But when I look at VR and it costs more than a PS5, it's really tough
Mhm.
for me to look at it and go, out of the 40 games that are on here, how many do I truly want to play? Um, And I think that's why I sometimes like look at it and go, I don't know if it's like worth it for me. And everybody's entitled to their own opinion. I'm sure somebody out there who loves the VR space so much that literally every game and every experience is amazing to them. And that's awesome and definitely worth it. But yeah, I definitely think to try and even get like a more casual person into it and to like bite and get like because it's important just for VR in general, not even just from a Sony standpoint, not just from a PlayStation standpoint. Like this is just important. Like I think Reggie Fils-Aimé just like said about I think it was him. So I apologize if I'm uh, off on this, but I could have sworn I just saw him retweet or talk about something that was like a report that basically ever since VR has come out, it's always just been this like niche thing, and he's kind of like until there I think he said until there's a like must have experience on it, it'll always be a niche thing. And I think some people might argue like Half-Life Alex is like a must play.
Mhm.
um but that came out and no, I don't know, I didn't know Half-Life was a thing until like probably 5 years ago. And then people were like it's all I could see is like people being like, it's the best game ever. And I'm just like, oh, okay. And then Half-Life Alex came out and it's just like, well, I never played Half-Life, so why would I care? So I don't know, but I understand his point of like it'll always be seen as like a niche thing until like that sort of experience happens. And will that experience ever truly happen remains to be seen, I guess. So yeah, I think Sony has kind of a prime opportunity with all the IPs that they have that tend to create this must-have experience to be within the PlayStation ecosystem to eventually maybe hit, but we'll see.
Yeah, I feel like, if any company is going to do it, it's going to be Sony because like everyone loves the gimmicky side of VR. Well, most people love the gimmicky side of VR. Like playing Beat Saber or like Fruit Ninja when that initially came to VR, like that was incredible, but is it worth dishing out all the money for a VR rig and the space for a VR rig? Like
Mhm.
probably not. Um yeah, I guess it just depends. I don't really think there is like a must play experience.
Right.
Because like I don't know, in my opinion, it's an amazing technology, and if you weren't sold on it at this point, you're not going to be sold on it.
Right.
So I think it will forever be a niche thing, until there's utility outside of gaming. Like
Well,
it's going to be the same thing as like mobile gaming. Like the only reason mobile gaming is so big is because this thing is already in your pocket.
yeah, I was gonna say, or until it becomes like a much more affordable accessory at the very least.
Right. So until we're using VR technology every single day for work, VR gaming really is not going to be anything but a niche thing. So I don't think it's about experience. It's about other utility, and gaming is just a complement to it.
Yeah. No, I definitely think that makes a ton of sense. Um, but yeah, I echo your sentiment. I think it's great that they decided to kind of like hit the ground running with this. And it'll remain to see as like we get more, showcases and stuff like that from them. Uh, if they continue to drive home this point of like, little reminder, PSVR 2 is a thing. Um, some other stuff that was shown, we got a look at um, Chia, Chia. um, I'm trying to think if I can remember how they pronounced it, but either way, it's like this, almost like exploration type game. I think from what I was gathering, like you can either control animals or turn into animals, and
Hmm.
visually, it's very pretty, very like island like. Um, so we got another look at that, and it was announced during it that it was going to launch on day one on the PlayStation Plus extra tier, which is exciting.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. We saw this, I want to say, almost a year ago at this point. I definitely remember seeing this before, and the visuals definitely. Maybe it was last summer, but I thought visually it looked really good. So I'm very excited. Much like Stray, a game that I'm excited for is going to be, available day one. Um, and I wish they would do it with their first party games, but I'll take it here in this case.
Yeah, it's a step in the right direction.
What would you think of Gia?
It kind of reminds me of that submerged hidden depths game I played, and I guess if anyone's played that was listening to this, they're just gonna say, "Why?" Because you're on a sailboat in a like near an island, and the answer is yes. But um, I'm on IGN's site. They compared it to Wind Waker,
hmm
so that's all I need because that's the best Legend of Zelda game ever.
Is that your like hot take? Don't people hate that game? Isn't that like saying Assassin's Creed Black Flag is your favorite Assassin's Creed game?
I don't know. I didn't realize people hated that game.
I don't know that people I first off, I don't think anybody hates or I don't think people hate I don't think it's unanimous that people hate any Zelda game. That's the right way I wanted to say that. Whereas Assassin's Creed, very much so. Um, but yeah, I feel like the gripe of Wind Waker is all the water, but maybe I'm wrong.
Mm.
Maybe that's what's charming about it.
I mean, it's not like you're sailing for fucking 45 minutes like you were in Black Flag.
You might be, you don't
Like,
know.
you have to remember it's a GameCube game, so,
Yeah.
like, you're only on 50 megabytes a map. Like, you're not on fucking 50 gigs.
All right, fair play, fair play.
So, no, it's really not that bad.
Well, one day I look forward to playing it, both
Yeah.
Chia and Wind Waker. Um,
Did, this I don't think any of the games they showed other than the VR, obviously, to a certain extent. Like, I don't think they were necessarily exclusive, right?
yeah, so I was trying to figure out. I think I want to say that Chia is at the very least a console exclusive for PlayStation. Um, because I feel like we saw it
Oh.
during one of their um, you know, showcases previously.
Yeah, this says PS5, PS4, and Windows. Well, I'll be able to play it on PS4.
Um, and I think Goodbye Volcano High is a PlayStation exclusive,
Hmm.
which I wanted to touch on next. I think that game looks like I like the art style of it. The gameplay like has you like kind of like it seems like at points in the story, like the main character is a part of a band, and so like during like story points, you have to like garage band or
Guitar Hero.
guitar hero, like press the button as like it hits the point. Which
So
like
they're making a knockoff Hi-Fi Rush. Gotcha.
well, I think this was announced first. Technically, they just aren't
Ah,
shadow
didn't come
dropping
out
it.
first.
um, but I also don't think that's like just. I don't think that's like all the gameplay, but I'm intrigued by it. I look forward to seeing more because this was I feel like mostly like kind of story based, but from what it seems like you're like dinosaurs in high school and basically you know the world is going to end, like you know that the meteor is like coming and I'm really intrigued like because you know that's just going to be like like Life is Strange and just like those types of games where it's like very much like narrative and probably a tearjerker at points and stuff like that, and just very
Right.
wholesome. And so I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, it definitely sounds interesting.
That's another one we saw. I want to say we saw that when we saw Chia the first time. Um,
Hopefully one of these days PlayStation stops gatekeeping all these games and, I'll be able to play them.
yeah, it's really interesting because Baldur's Gate is also, I think, only coming to PlayStation, though that's currently. Um, but this was the first time we heard somebody, I think, use the Series S as an excuse. So
Mm.
they did say that Baldur's Gate is going to release on Xbox, um, but it's just not gonna be at the same time as on PS5 and PC. It is just the next gen game, so I don't know if like that's part of like the issue. Since the Series S is technically like like it's correct me if I'm wrong, slightly better than a One X or almost in line with a One X, but definitely worse than a Series X.
Um, it's definitely worse than a Series X. It's like kind of I would call it like a sibling to the One X.
Yeah.
The One X technically has like hardware that's benchmark or the One X. I don't know what I said, One X or Series X, but the One X technically has like an APU that's benchmarked higher than um the Series S. Like the One X can get um 4K 60 frames, and I think the Series S only gets up to 1440.
Okay.
But obviously, like the big difference is the storage. Like
Right.
the Series S loads way faster than the
Right.
1X. So I consider it like a sibling because it's better in some ways and worse in others.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, but I thought that was interesting that effectively the excuse that they gave was that they need to develop the game for Series S as well because that's part of like the current generation. Um, I thought that looked good. Visuals for it are really good. And it's basically just like D&D. But like you get to play it on your console. So you like
Mm.
roll and like you can get crits and stuff like that. So
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people are. I feel like out of everything in the show, not including the Destiny expansion,
mhm.
this is what people are most excited about.
Yeah, I definitely think there's been quite a bit of hype around it for a while. Yeah, people were obviously uh Destiny has such a great following. So people have been freaking out. I've seen a lot of stuff about the Lightfall expansion. Great trailer for it. I think like visually and everything, like it all just looks good. I had the moment of like, do I have to get back into Destiny 2? Like I played the campaign of it like so long ago. Never did like any raids or anything like that, but um yeah, this definitely had me like thinking about it, which I feel like is kind of saying something, but
Every time something comes out for Destiny 2, I got Destiny 2. I think I probably bought it a long time ago for PS4 and never played it. I have Destiny. I played most of the campaign of that, but not all of it.
mhm,
And then it was like a really big game on Stadia, and there was actually a really good community for it. So it's like, okay, maybe I'll play it on Stadia. Um, and every time I went to go play it, it's like there's been so much stuff that's happened, and like,
yeah.
am I gonna have a bad experience because I didn't play all of the other expansions? And like, can I even still play the expansions, or is that like a timed thing, like seasons almost?
Right.
Like, I have no idea. I should probably just look it up, but or just
Yeah,
play
it
it.
is like the daunting part of it, right? And I think that's ultimately why I'm just never going to really get back into it. I am ashamed because you bring up that you had Destiny and you tried to get us onto the Destiny hype with you,
I did.
and we never did. And then I ultimately got, I think I got Destiny 2 before you, and I'm pretty sure this is how the conversation went. I was playing Destiny 2. I think I texted you and was like, wow, this game's pretty fun. And I think your response was, go fuck yourself. I hate you. I tried to get you to play Destiny. Don't tell
Right,
me
and now
about
I'm
Destiny
over it.
2.
That sounds about right.
um, no, it wasn't exactly that, but it was along those lines
Close.
and very fair. But yeah, I always have that moment too of like, there's just so much, and I think they have like stuff in place to basically get you caught up. But
I'm sure. Yeah.
um,
I
go ahead.
just like when Destiny 3 comes out, I'll buy a PS5 and I'm going to just from the beginning. I'm going to get into it. I'm going to be a Destiny guy.
Yeah.
That's like one of those games I feel like I missed out on. I
All
feel like
right.
that's one of my bigger FOMO games in my gaming
All
experience.
right. Stay tuned. Destiny 3. Mike and Spencer get good in Destiny.
Yeah, we do.
Um, Other stuff that they showed some Street Fighter 6. Cammy did a bend and snap. The internet broke. Um, Resident Evil 4, we got to see more there. Love these Resident Evil remakes. They look so good graphically, which I think is exactly like, what some of them need. Especially since I feel like the early Resident Evils are the ones that are received and remembered so fondly. And then they do these remakes and people are like, yeah, no, these games are amazing. So that's always
I
great to
mean,
see.
Resident Evil 4 is the one. Like
Uh
this is the one people have been waiting for.
yeah, and this came out GameCube generation,
Yeah.
GameCube, PS2 and
I don't know that it was on Xbox.
Xbox, but it was that generation.
It was that generation, yeah.
Yeah. Um yeah, this is typically the one that I think people refer to as like the best. So Resident Evil, one of my favorite games to watch. Don't know if I'll ever get into playing them, but holy shit, do I love watching it. So that's enough for me, and so I can't wait for it to come out for that reason.
I have always wanted to play Resident Evil 4. I never did, so this might be one that I play at some point.
Yeah, I think like because I'm in this like collector's phase. Well, I don't think it's ever gonna go away, but I think because of like how
Now
well
phase mode.
received, yeah, how well received Resident Evil is. Um, I think it's gonna be something that I try to like add to the collection.
Yeah,
So I think at that point, like once I start picking them up, that's when I'll start playing them. But I want to try and like play the OGs and like get the feel of them. Not, I don't necessarily need to like finish them, though. Lord knows I'll try, but just like play them and get that experience, and then like play the remakes and remasters and stuff like that, to get the more like modern take on it. But I think it's something that I am going to try and get into. Uh, but much like Fast and Furious, there's so much that I just don't know when to take the time to start.
right.
Um, the last but not least biggest part of the show in terms of time spent was the Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League um kind of extended look. So super curious you bring up that like what other games were shown that are technically console exclusives. Um and and then there's this 15-minute look at Suicide Squad. They had an extended look for Hogwarts Legacy and had like all of the promotion for that game. um what else have they had recently? I feel like PlayStation's had some others. But it's and then in terms of like console exclusives or at least timed exclusives, you had like Deathloop, Returnal, um uh Ghostwire Tokyo. The list goes on and on. And it's just so interesting that we're having this fight that we talked about last week over like should Microsoft be able to get Activision Blizzard, and acquire them. And I think the FTC asked for Sony to give like all of their exclusivity deals slash offers since like 2019. And Sony was
Mhm.
basically like, no, we don't want to give it. And that motion got denied right before we started recording. I saw that it was denied. So Sony's going to have to share all of the exclusivity deals and like partnerships that they have had since 2019. And that list is going to be massive. And I think that should hopefully, you know, put a lot of points on Microsoft's side in terms of like, I think Sony will be okay, if we acquire Activision Blizzard. So, not to go back
Yeah,
into the whole Activision Blizzard stuff, but you bring up a great point about like all in just this showcase alone.
right. I do think it's a crock of shit that they only have to do it from 2019 because, like, okay, come on, you're gonna make them do it during the only the pandemic years?
That's
Like,
fair,
go
but I
back
mean,
go back to 2018. Yeah, it should still be a significant list, but
that's really fair. Yeah.
anyway.
Even still though, like I said, should hope paint a pretty darn good picture. But yeah, so we got an extended look at Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. We talked about this 2, 3, 4 weeks ago.
Mhm.
Games as a service, do they kind of deserve the shit that they get? I stand by no, they don't, but I do question like, is it the move for this type of game? Um, I think it's like a little ridiculous that Captain Boomerang is shooting a gun. Um, his weapon is a
Should at
boomerang.
least be throwing it.
That's his whole thing. So I'm curious. I still think the game looks like it should be good fun. I think like the story seems pretty good. I just think some parts of it are going to be kind of like a head scratch. The only thing that I am very upset about is that even when you play in single player mode, you have to have an online connection. And I really
Mhm.
just desperately need games to not do this. You gotta stop doing this. Please, for the love of God, Gran Turismo. If I'm not playing online races, why do I need to be connected to the internet to just drive my nice fancy cars? I hate it. I hate it so much when games
I
do this.
I just had that experience with Madden yesterday. I went to go play it, and I was literally just doing the face of the franchise mode,
Mm-hmm.
completely story based. Nothing about it was online. Couldn't play because they were doing maintenance.
Yeah, it's dumb.
What? what could you possibly be doing at and this was like noon. I was playing it like basically over my lunch. And they're like, we're doing server maintenance. Like, okay, cool. Do server maintenance. Like this is stored on my Xbox.
Right. Yeah, dude, I can't stand it. Somebody brought up a really good point too that um when a game like this is like, done, like you take it offline, like that'll be it. Like you won't even be able to play the single player experience of it. And somebody brought up that, eventually the servers for games will get sunset. Like they don't just stay up forever. And this is the last time that Kevin Conroy voiced Batman. So when they sunset the servers for this game, that'll just be lost. That'll be gone.
That
And
is a really interesting point.
that's really upsetting to think about. So I don't know. That on top, that's like the cherry on top of just why I hate it so much. But like again, when you're doing something that's strictly single player, it's already bad enough that they make trophies that are tied to multiplayer. So when I go back and play Rise Son of Rome and there's an online trophy, I probably can't get it because
Right.
it's a game from 10 years ago and naturally the servers are down. So that's already a crock of shit. But then, yeah, to like take away even the single player experience because you have to be connected to a server at all times is just the most asinine backwards thing I could possibly think of. But yet here we are. Um, Still interested by the game, but if it has a bad launch and I don't get around to it, it could be a year after it comes out, and like I just won't have the opportunity to play it, and that sucks.
I feel like this is definitely going to be one of those games too where they only like they sunset it after like 2 years. Like what? A game just came out like a year ago. Oh, was it Rumbleverse maybe?
Yeah, yep,
Like, and I get that was supposed to be like an online game, but like once people stop playing the single player mode for this, like that's going to be it.
right.
And if this game flops and people only play it for 6 months, they maybe wait another 6 months. If daily active users doesn't go up, then that's it. And if you didn't play it at that point, you're not going to play it.
Yeah, it's just crazy to again have that like connected and not still have a route to be able to experience the game single
Yeah.
player. So,
Yep.
um, like I said, still curious about it. Still think it looks like it should be pretty good, but yeah, it's a dangerous game. So we shall see. Anything else from you for the Sony State of Play? Um, you know, Overall, rating for it or anything?
Um, I would say like a personal rating for me, probably like a C. Um, that's my very biased rating. I would say like in general, probably a B, B minus.
Yeah, again, I think they did a good job of like setting expectations. So I certainly wasn't like, oh, they made it seem like it was going to be this, or like they just left it
Right.
completely open to interpretation. They didn't show any like Spider Man or anything like that, right? Um, I think there were a couple of things that were like, yeah, this makes sense. Like they showed Resident Evil, and I feel like they've been showing Resident Evil stuff now forever. Um, like Street Fighter totally makes sense. And like got to see more about two games that we haven't heard about in some time. So uh, it's not the big thing that like shows you all of their like IPs and like what's going to be coming. And again, I think a showcase like that is destined to happen fairly soon. So I thought like expectations wise, they did a good
At
job.
E3.
Yes. Yep. At E3. Um, I agree. I'd probably give it like a C plus overall though. Like, nothing about it was like amazing. I know
Mhm.
just because they set expectations doesn't make it a good showcase.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
but yeah, uh, I definitely was more excited, and then once I saw like all it was going to be, I was just like, oh, okay, all right. So, uh, but yeah, now we can talk about the other presents, which was uh for Pokemon Day, and I definitely didn't flub saying that during the intro a million times. Maybe
Maybe
I'll
I'll
leave it
set it
in.
once.
Who's to say? Maybe I'll leave it in.
Maybe.
um, yeah, Pokemon. What'd you think of the Pokemon Presents?
I I came to the realization that I need to like know they're going to do this every single year on February 27th,
Yep.
and that it's not always going to be like game centric.
Yeah.
Because we got through the whole thing, I was like, well, that was kind of a waste of time.
Yep.
But like it wasn't. I mean, they're always gonna do something. Like my first thought was it feels like they just kind of carved this together and like did it because they felt like they needed to.
hmm
And at the end of the day, they kind of do. Like people have recognized this as a day, and it goes beyond the games, like to the now the um, media and the card game. Um, so I just need to have that expectation every year.
Right. Yeah. Uh,
Um,
that's perfect. Like, uh, you said it perfectly because obviously every year we aren't going to get them dropping like the news of like a new Pokemon Legends game and Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl and you know what I mean. Like we just had a game come out, which most likely means you can expect DLC and then probably just like updates about what is happening with Pokemon everywhere
mhm.
else. Um, so yeah, uh, I completely hear you.
I I know this is kind of weird, but I was like kind of expecting slash hoping there to be like Arceus content.
Like an expansion for the game or
I don't know
like a
necessarily
another
an
game that is
expansion.
like built like that.
No, even just like an event or something.
I
Like
gotcha.
so I don't know. I'm assuming they're just done with Arceus at this point now that the Scarlet and Violet's out, and they're probably
Yeah.
working on whatever the next game is. But it just seemed like it was so well received that I was kind of thinking they were going to slip something in.
Yeah, I
Um,
think yeah, I think the issue there is that like you said, Scarlet and Violet are out, and so
yeah,
events are happening in that and stuff like that.
I'm in general getting a little nervous about the Pokemon brand. Like it's almost getting to Marvel level for me.
Oh,
Like, okay, so the thing that really kind of pushed me over the edge was fucking Pokemon Sleep.
come on now. We've known about that for a while. Let's go. Pokemon
Okay,
Sleep.
well, I have
More news. Yes.
like
Mike, it'll track your sleeping patterns and then give you the opportunity when you have a really good night's sleep to catch Charizard. And when you have a piss poor night's sleep, you have to fucking catch, I don't know, Bonsley or some shit.
what the mm, I'll see you next week. I'm done.
Oh, I could not resist the urge. Whew, man.
I just hope you know that because of that, I'm gonna have an awful night.
Oh, it was just low hanging fruit. I'm really sorry.
Mhm. Like, okay, great. So I'll never be able to catch a Charizard because I never fucking sleep. So like, thanks.
Yeah, I I'm interested by the gimmick, but I think it like falls into like Pokemon Go where it's like I'll be into it for the first couple of weeks and be figuring out all the ways. Like, oh, you're telling me if I take two melatonin? Is that
Yeah.
the stuff that helps you sleep? If I take
Yep.
two melatonin gummies, uh there's an increased chance that I'll see
This is
Mewtwo.
gonna
I'll see Mewtwo when I wake up.
Oh my god, this is what I'm gonna do my PhD dissertation on the gamification of sleep and its increase in drug dependency in users.
You're telling me if I fall asleep quicker but have worse REM cycles, that's the key to catching Snorlax? All right, looks like I'm gonna drink myself to sleep. I fell asleep
I
so
just
easily. Why did I sleep like shit?
I the paranoid like John McAfee in me was like, "What's Nintendo want with my sleep data? What are you doing? What is this? Is this game free?"
Yeah. It definitely will be.
It's one of those things that's weird to me. Like in software in general, like companies trying to gamify sleep, and they're just like, "Oh well, the lack of sleep is a crisis uh, in the US," which like I agree with, but I feel like it's just a lot of people capitalizing and selling sleep data as a commodity, which is just weird.
Okay. Well, now that you soured my mood on Pokemon Sleep,
I just
uh,
don't get it. Like why? Okay. Anyway, sorry. I'm just being a boomer.
tell
Now
me
let's talk
tell me about
about
your feelings about plus plus.
I I paused. So I had this on like just in the background while I was doing some work, and I heard plus plus. And I was like mid typing, stare at my computer. I had this playing on the TV, and I like stopped typing, and I looked up at the TV. I'm like, did I just hear what I thought I heard? And I was like, immediately thought it was that Hulu commercial where they're making fun of like um just subscription services all being plus.
Hmm.
And I think they landed on like Hulu plus live TV plus plus.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh my god, we have this is the alpha moment for the world in that we've run out of pluses, so now we have to move on to plus plus." Like it's not enough to just be anything plus anymore. You've got to be something plus plus. And I I I had to stop my work to take in what a momentous moment in mankind that this was.
M- If you ask me, missed opportunity on PlayStation to make the new tiers of PlayStation Plus, PlayStation Plus Plus, and PlayStation Plus Plus Plus.
All right. I mean, even PlayStation Plus Plus Extra is ridiculous.
Sure. So basically what it is just like a device that um allows you to like spin Pokemon stops without having to actually like be in the app. I guess it does it automatically when you walk by. Um
Okay.
and it also I guess is gonna be compatible with Pokemon Sleep. I don't know if I missed that during the presentation. I think I heard plus plus and I shit myself, so I had to go deal with that. um, uh, but it says here that a Pikachu inside the device will sing players lullabies and gets friendlier the more sleep the trainer gets. And like I just think about the inverse where you're talking about how you never sleep well, and
Pikachu is
Pikachu's
just a
like,
dick.
Pika Pika, go to sleep. Like Pika Pika. It's getting even meaner and making it even harder for you to fall asleep because you think
Right.
Pikachu's gonna come out at any moment and just fucking shock the shit out of you. Um, that's just ridiculous to me.
I'm already upsetting the fucking Duolingo owl every day. I don't need Pikachu pissed at me too because I'm not sleeping.
I'm just
I'm not
trying to.
sleeping because the Duolingo owl's mad at me.
I'm like, I'm trying to understand why they named it plus plus. I don't know if it's because the plus this device looks very similar. Do you remember the
Oh, I remember.
Heart Gold Soul Silver, right? Were the ones
Yeah.
that had this um
Pedometer.
yeah, that you could like put a Pokemon in or put eggs in and like if you walked, in real life, it would track it on there and then you would transfer them back to the game and it would, uh increase friendliness or hatch eggs potentially for you and stuff like that.
That was
If
actually pretty dope.
Yeah, if I remember correctly. And I can't remember if that device was called like the Plus something, like Poke
Mm,
Tracker Plus. And so if that's why they're like, oh, to differentiate That's
because
fucking.
everyone remembers that.
I know. I don't even remember what the fuck it was called.
It's
But if I Google it, would that be an issue? And that's why they needed for search engine optimization, they had to call this fucking plus plus because there's no way you can fucking mistype that shit. Oh my god. Incredible
like
stuff.
I didn't even know which plus came first.
Yeah, I think I got it wrong in the intro because I said it was the symbol and then the word typed out, and that was idiotic on my part because it's
Yeah,
obviously the word and then the symbol. Fucking
yeah.
idiot. Um, Great, just two amazing announcements that I love. Really got both of us. They announced Pokemon Sleep though. They announced that like 3 years ago, so I am actually happy that they like didn't just announce that shit
Delivered it.
and then never did anything with it. Now if only they give us Detective Pikachu on the Switch like they
Yeah.
promised.
The
Um,
movie, not the game.
yeah. Some other stuff they announced like updates for Pokemon Unite, Pokemon Cafe Remix, Pokemon Masters, which are mobile games. Unite is also on the Switch. I played it twice. Can't wait for the servers to sunset for that. They
Mm.
announced a new uh is Pokemon Concierge that's a series on Netflix. Um which, great, I guess. Apparently I should know who Haru is, but I don't. So looking forward to it. But I think the biggest thing was that they announced once again expansions. So they did this for the first time ever on Sword and Shield. It was a completely new thing for Pokemon to do at the time. Uh, I guess it was received well enough because they're doing it again. And I think like on a console, it makes sense. It's effectively like
Mhm.
getting somebody to do like a season pass to get big DLC. I know Chris and Jess, um, said that they enjoyed the Sword and Shield expansions. Uh, I again am just curious if I will be. I think the first one is coming out late this year, and then the second one won't be out until. No, I think the first one's supposed to come fall. The second one's supposed to come winter. Um, I think the second one they left a little more ambiguous. Like I think they said it should release in winter. And I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get back into it by then. Like I already fell off of like trying to keep up with like these terror raids that happen and stuff like that. And like I really do think I just like played it and loved it, enjoyed it, thought the games were great, and like that was really it. And I'll see you next launch.
Mhm.
That's the problem I think with Pokemon is that I love it so much. This is going to sound so backwards, but I love it so much that I play it for 100 hours in such a tight time period, and I just milk it for all it's worth before they even start giving you like the extra goodies. And then by the time that like something else takes away my attention for even 1 second, I'm out. Like I can't even pick it back up and like feel the same joy I felt oh, so long as like a week ago. It's really crazy because I do truly love Pokemon a ton, but it's just so easy for me to put so much time into it and then just fall out of it like it was nothing.
Yeah, it's and so okay, let me ask you this. Um, let's say that The Last of Us Part 2 came out with story-based DLC, like comes out next week.
Hmm.
Would you be able to jump back into that pretty quickly?
Yes, because I love The Last of Us.
So what is it about Pokemon that
I think it's the fact that with The Last of Us, I haven't put 100 fucking hours into it.
True.
Like, I think that might be the problem, right? Like, I think like it's that um I'm trying to think of like the best way to describe it, but it's almost like how Chris and I, when we were talking, where like you lose save data that you just did, and then you have to like go back and like do it again. And like,
Oh,
I
yeah,
don't know
yeah.
why, but like Pokemon almost feels that way to me. And like, it's not the sense that I'm like doing like, I'm not having to redo like story or something like that. And obviously, like the DLC is going to be new story, if anything. But it's just like the fact of like going like ripping myself out of Pokemon and then trying to force myself back into it. I don't know. I just like, it's so hard to to like really like put my finger on it. But you bringing up The Last of Us, it's like, well, I just love The Last of Us so freaking much. And maybe it's because I haven't played it in so long that it's easier. I think the real test is going to be Horizon when that DLC comes out. But the
Mm.
thing is, like, I've picked up Horizon again in an attempt to make sure that I'm actually ready for it because I think I wouldn't have picked it up otherwise. It's so tricky. I'm such a finicky little bitch. You know, nobody can figure me out. I don't know. Maybe we'll have to have Jess and Chris on to talk up the expansions and get me into it.
We can do that, I think.
Actually, just
I
Jess.
can't
We don't
speak for
want
them, but
we don't want Chris's ego to grow because of how many times he's been on the show. So just Jess. Um, anything else on the Pokemon Presents?
nope, let's talk Last of Us.
Let's talk Last of Us. So we promised you 3 episodes. We're gonna get you caught up on 5, 6, and 7. There's only 2 more to go for the season. Because we're covering 3 episodes, I don't want this episode of the podcast to all of a sudden be an hour and a half. So we'll probably go fairly quick through them. But basically, episode 5 is the Sam and Henry story from the game. Episode 6 is Joel and Ellie getting to Tommy and his group, and then episode 7 is the Left Behind DLC. With that being said, I will give the disclaimer, I guess, because I didn't do that. If you don't want to hear anything about, us talking about the events of the episodes, any spoilers or anything like that outside of like just what happens in the games, now's your time to tune out. And thank you for listening. And for those of you that want to stick around, let's get into it. The Sam and Henry episode 5. What were your thoughts?
Uh, obviously very good. Um, I just it's just such a good story for them to add, like, the relationships that kind of come along in The Last of Us is just really what builds the story, and, I really liked the Sam and Henry story in, the original Last of Us, or in the game, I guess. Um, so I just thought it was really well done.
Yeah. And I I thought the decision to make Sam deaf in the show
Mhm.
was brilliant because like it just like it just proves how much of a bond there is beyond just Henry and Sam being brothers. And the way the story ends is that Sam gets bit, Henry has to make the decision to kill Sam. Like he won't let Joel or Ellie do it, right? In the game, um I think Joel gets to the gun and then I'm mixing up Henry and Sam. Henry shoots at him to like get him to drop it, if I remember
Yeah,
correctly. In
I think
in the
so.
show, I don't even think Joel was able to get to it, or maybe he did, and Henry forced him to like put it down, whatever. But Henry was the one who was like the one who had to make that decision and do the action and everything like that. And you know, again, outside of him just being his brother, which automatically makes that an incredibly hard thing, it's his kid brother who he's had to carry through this infection that is like a ridiculous thing that you can never even imagine. I can't remember if in the game they said about this or not, but in the show they talk about how Sam gets sick at some point and Henry like killed people to get the medication for Sam to be able to like keep going. So like during like when it would be so easy during the apocalypse, which is obviously easy to say because we aren't in one, but like it'd
Mhm.
be so easy to just be like, well, shit's already fucked. Um, like what's even the point? Like it's his brother, he gets sick, he carries him through all that, and then you add the fact that he's deaf, which makes it's gonna make everything 2 times harder. Like he can't
Right.
hear what the hell's happening. um and so like I just feel like that like strengthens the bond between the two of them and makes that decision that much harder and that much like harder to swallow having to watch it and just like be like fuck. um and it was also a great idea because like in a suspense show like this, like when you had those like scenes where it was just Henry and Sam, for it to be silent and they're just signing to each other, and making very little noise, and like everything else is so much more heightened. So like they showed like um there was like all this stuff in the street, so it was like dead silent, and then there's like glass breaking and like gun shooting and stuff like that. And it's just, it feels so loud because everything was so quiet beforehand. I thought that was like awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Um, but yeah, I thought the episode was amazing. I think it like really strengthened like the fact like in the game also reminds you like Ellie is really just like a kid in all of this, and like her relationship with Sam is like very wholesome, which God, it's just so tragic. Um, Anything else on episode 4 or episode 5? Episode 4, episode 5.
No, because episode 5, the beginning is still like, oh, never mind. Sorry. I was thinking about the beginning of. No, I'm good. Sorry. Carry on.
Now I feel like I might have messed up these things because now I'm trying to.
Because there was 2 episodes with Sam and Henry, but I think it was we just talked about episode 5, right?
Yeah, we was talking about episode 5, which is the
Okay.
actual episode with them. Episode 4, they like
That's
get
when.
to Joel and Ellie at the end.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
I
sorry.
think.
That's where I was confused.
Now I'm very confused as to like what we did talk about, what we didn't. Well, I think that was episode 5. Yeah. So
Yeah, it was because episode 6 was them, because it starts, they show that scene again,
right.
and then they move on. Like Joel and Ellie move on.
Yes. So okay. So anything else for episode 5?
No.
Okay. Um, Episode 6 is them continuing on to try and find Tommy, and by the end of it, they do in fact find Tommy. What were your thoughts on this episode?
This one, so I watched a comparison video afterwards, which I've been trying to do after each one between, the events of the show and the events of the game. Um, I definitely thought this one was interesting in how they handled the dynamic differently. Like, um, Joel and Tony kind of meet in a more calm environment. Like, Joel's already in the compound. Um, it gets a little like fiery between the two, but not as fiery as it does in the game, which
Mm-hmm.
I think was kind of important. Um, but you know, overall, I didn't dislike what they did in the show. I just thought it was interesting that they took that approach compared to what they did in the game. But overall, I enjoyed the episode. I thought it was good. I'm not gonna like not enjoy any of these episodes,
Right.
candidly, but um, I think just kind of how they uh, painted Jackson in the show version um, was well done.
Yeah. Um, I loved that you had like towards the beginning, they they're with those like two old couples who are the old couple who are like just the two of them living like on their own, kind of middle of nowhere. Um, and Joel does his whole thing from the game where uh he asks one person for information and then says like you better give the same information, um like basically or else, which is like an
Hmm.
amazing thing that is like a key point in the game that is like coming up in the show where he pulls that same thing. Um and I loved the back and forth between the couple of
It
like,
was hilarious.
did you tell him the truth? Yep. Are you telling me the truth? Yep. And then he kind of looks at Joel like, oh, and then he like points. I thought that was great. I think the other great thing about this episode, a lot of people are like pointing out to like the fact that like Joel's having these like panic attacks, and like I think that's something that's so much easier to convey in a TV show as opposed to
Hmm.
like a video game. And he's having these moments where dude's old. Like he's not just like this killing machine. Like he will absolutely kill you, but like, you know, even the, to just backtrack the last episode where you have the Joel's the sniper up in the house. Like he's not just whipping off like one shots left and right. Like um so I think like he's just so much more human in the show, which is exactly what he should be.
I agree.
And he's had 20 years of this, you know, fucking crazy shit. Like, of course he's gonna have panic attacks over stuff like this, and he's like literally helping, you know, uh, get. He's like, uh, 20 years after having a daughter of his own, is given this duty to have to like protect, you know, someone who is like the age of his daughter, and I'm sure like, you know, that all plays into it and everything, and so I think the way they're doing that is also amazing. Like, it again just helps to just show how human he is and how like how you would actually be in this situation to some extent, right? So I think that's been incredible. And then um yeah, I thought the stuff between him and Tommy was really well done. Um you know, I thought the I thought the whole thing about like, oh, so you guys are communists was really funny.
Mhm.
Because Tommy's like,
Love
no.
on a comeback.
Yeah. And then yeah, and then is it Maria?
Yeah,
She's literally like, well, no, that's exactly what we are. Which I thought was really funny because it's like you hate the word, but like in a situation like this, the idea is kind of ideal.
right.
So I thought that was really funny. And then I was curious. The end of the episode is when Joel basically gets his injury that sets up Left Behind and the like snow part of the game. And I was curious how they were going to do that because in the game he falls from a height and you know Ellie and him Ellie's like, "Oh my god, we survived. We're fine." And then she looks and he's got just like a pipe through him or like a yeah, I can't think of a better word for it. So I was curious how they were going to do
Is it
that.
like a piece of rebar or
Yeah, yeah,
something?
yeah, yeah. Thank you. I was curious how they were going to do that because that's such a moment in the game that like sticks out to me. And I think they
Really?
did. Uh, I liked how they did it though.
Yeah.
Without making them like go sneak through the entire thing of like going through all the rooms to collect all the resources, and then eventually you get into a shooting fight and fall and all this other stuff. That's like the great part about the show is like it helps to speed up those moments, but it still takes the time to get you the like the story beats that you need.
Mhm.
And so I thought that was great. And then the episode ends with the very dramatic, you know, part in the game where Joel falls off the horse, and you're just like, oh my god, like what the fuck's gonna happen? Um, and then we get Left Behind. So what were your thoughts on that?
This one was like, I mean, it's all nostalgia, uh, heavy for me, but I remember when the Left Behind DLC came out, and I faked sick so I could stay home and play it, and I sat down and I beat it in, like, however long it takes, 3 or 4 hours,
Yeah.
and thought the story was so good, and I kinda just, like, I love that they, like, didn't stray a whole lot from that story in this because, um, it felt so perfect.
Yeah. I agree. I thought like the experience of Left Behind is amazing. And yeah, I thought like how they delivered on it in the show to talk about the changes, like the actual DLC is like Ellie going out looking for supplies to figure out how to like fix up Joel. And she goes to a mall and there's a helicopter that she needs to get to see like to find the medical supplies that are needed to help. But throughout moving through the mall, the like story linear checkpoints of it are these flashbacks, and this entire episode is just effectively those flashbacks instead, which is the best part of the story. Because you're just getting this like great Ellie backstory. And so I really loved that they literally just showed that, and then the end of the episode is like instead of her going out she like closes the door and like because it's effectively like just Joel's telling her just to leave, and instead of like going out and leaving, she's like, okay, there's got to be something around here, and you get the amazing shot of her stitching Joel up
Hmm.
with fucking thick thread.
Yeah, so red.
But yeah, oh yeah, such a good narrative in just gaming, right? Like I think it's often regarded as like some of the best, just the DLC alone. And like uh I was so excited for this as well. Love that they like cut it in right where it would fit. Um, Instead of making us wait, a couple of months to pay $15 or whatever for DLC.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I thought it was so good. And it just has like each episode just gets me more excited for like what's next. But like at the end of it, I'm also like, that means it's gonna be done soon. um,
Yeah, it's definitely one of those shows that I'm gonna be sad about.
yeah, it's just been so well done. I've seen like a couple of things. Gene Park was talking about it a lot today about like the feeling that the show is rushed, which like technically I can understand, especially if you played the game.
Right.
But what I kind of to my point earlier, where it's like it's rushing through like the stuff that does not fucking matter. It's just that there was more time between the story beats in the game because you were looking around and like finding monkeys and like stuff like that.
Right. The
Uh,
time feels significant in between these events, whereas like you're basically just watching the cutscenes now.
yeah, and he brought up that like it's the speed at which you meet a character and then that character dies. He's like, that's what's really like causing you to make it feel rushed because like in the game you meet Bill and you're with Bill for like a good solid portion, right?
Hmm.
Whereas in the show, you're given an hour of Bill, and that's it. And it might only be that in the game for all I know, but like it just feels more substantial. Um,
But like the hour with Bill is without Joel in the show.
right, right. Um, but I don't know. I've been loving it. Like I actually think it's like done really well. And like part of me at the beginning was like, how the hell is this going to fit the first game into just one season? But we have 2 episodes to go, and I'm like, I'm so jazzed. Gene teased it a little bit. He said that he thinks that these 2 episodes are going to be most people's like unanimous favorites. Um, and I'm
We're
just,
getting
I,
Troy Baker.
yeah, we're getting Troy in this next episode. He's a part of the cannibal group. No Nolan North as David though, so that's interesting.
My God.
um, But yeah, so I cannot wait for these next 2 episodes. They're gonna be absolutely wild. Um, and it's just been so phenomenally done. I'm so happy that they've just nailed it. Like that's really all I can say.
Yes, they did.
Anything else on Last of Us?
Ready for season 2.
Yeah, season 2 when? Probably not for a year and a half.
At least I've got The Mandalorian.
Yeah, at least we got Mandalorian starting up, so Pedro Pascal doesn't have to leave your TV quite yet.
Yeah.
Um, Awesome. Well, hopefully you all have been enjoying the show as much as we have. If you haven't played the games yet, you're missing out. So it's got me itching to pick up Last of Us Part One, for sure.
I've
So
been thinking about it. I
mission
feel like once
accomplished.
yeah, I feel like once the show's over, I'm gonna want to just like get right back into the story again.
Yeah. Um. But yeah. Let us know what your thoughts were on the Pokemon Presents and the PlayStation State of Play. Um. You know, anything that you were especially excited for, definitely let us know. Plus plus. Uh, be sure to leave us a rating or a review wherever you listen. And last but not least, be sure to share the episode with a Pokemon professor, preferably somebody with a last name that is a type of tree. And we'll talk to you next week.